4 years after the merger began and 3 months into the fully formed Crown entity, there is still division. 2 former Polytech CEOs and a current staffer and union rep have concerns about its direction.
I'm fearful that we've put all of our eggs into the Te Pukenga basket. I'm fearful that students don't have choice.
Things are getting worse in terms of enrolments, in terms of equity gaps.
People are going to start pulling out, and it's going to be a death spiral.
Te Pukenga was formed after intense consultation with the vocational education sector.
Last year alone, the government had to put an extra $100 million into the Polytech system simply to keep it afloat.
So around $200 million was spent on the transition costs to form Te Pukenga. But senior lecturer Steve McCabe is left wondering why.
Twice a month now on my bank statement, my salary comes from Te Pukenga, not from MIT. And that's about the most profound change I've seen.
We've just spent millions on establishing councils and groups and disestablishing and establishing executive leadership teams and disestablishing and appointing all of these head office staff.
It would be reasonable to expect better services for students, that things were going better for staff, that it was break even or running a surplus. But of course, none of those things have happened.
At the end of last year, Te Pukenga forecast a $110 million deficit. It was later revised down to $63 million, closer to the budgeted deficit of $59 million. Still not good enough in the current Education Minister's books.
I basically said we need to see this turning around, and now.
But just last week, a leak revealed more money was sought by Te Pukenga as part of this year's budget, $330 million more.
That money is only to get the IT systems talking to each other, essentially, and it's only to make redundancies for more staff. We know that some of the early requests were for nearly $1 billion over 10 years. So the $330 million is not the final point. They will be coming back asking for more money.
This for an institution that started to form 4 years ago, but still doesn't have an operating model.
What will be done differently? How will that be achieved? What are the timelines for that? What are the critical components within that? What are the costs? It should all be set out in a clear operating model.
When are you expecting to see one?
Again, there's a little bit of an iterative process because as change takes time, change isn't going to be overnight. And what we do
But
know...
how do they know how to change if they don't have an operating model?
Well, they do have an operating model.
Where is it? Where is their operating model?
They're developing that as we're going along.
With no operating model and around 480 jobs on the chopping block as they seek to make budget cuts over the next 3 years, Steve McCabe says staff are on edge.
The sense that people have is that cuts are coming, and my job might be next. And this does not put people in a good frame of mind when they show up to work on a Monday morning.
The then minister made his expectations clear from the outset, detailing all 6 of them. One of them emphasising the need for successful Māori and Pacific learners. But provisional data shown to Newshub Nation paints a different picture, with no improvement to success for Māori and Pacific students since 2019.
I've been very strong about this in the last few weeks since I've come in as Education Minister, is that they need to solve that.
But something the minister doesn't have a problem with is increased competition between private training establishments and Te Pukenga. UB just received $370,000 to develop a diploma in enrolled nursing program, a course Steve teaches on.
We're not creating options. Those options already existed before.
No, this is a brand new course you're funding for UB to branch out into nursing foundational studies when you already have it down the road.
But PTEs existed there before.
Merrin Davis wants the CEO and the board removed and has a petition with Parliament to do just that.
The madness needs to stop and there needs to be a sanity check.
The CEO, Peter Winder, was approached for an interview several times for this story but refused. The minister backs his leadership, and with Labour in government, Jan Tinetti says Te Pukenga is here to stay. National would scrap it altogether.
We wouldn't go back to 16 polytechnics as there were before. We'd probably go back to around 10.
But one thing that can be agreed on is the future of vocational education in Aotearoa needs to be preserved.
Whether you're a tradie, whether you're a social worker, whether you just want to learn to read and write so you can get your licence, whatever it might be, I think that as Kiwis we have a right to have a credible system.